pre-registered coordinates, drone surveillance, no escape route. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Somewhere in the gray zone between two Russian battalion sectors, a Ukrainian special operations team is moving on foot through terrain the invaders consider impassable. No vehicles, no heavy equipment, just 8 operators, their weapons, a targeting laser, and a satellite uplink. The difference between success and catastrophe. Their target has been shelling Ukrainian cities for weeks. A Russian 9K-720 Iskander-M tactical ballistic missile launcher, one of the most mobile and lethal ground-based strike systems in Russia's arsenal. Range, 500 kilometers. Warhead weight, 480 kilograms. Circular error probable, 5 to 7 meters. When this system fires, Ukrainian civilians die. The launcher has been playing a ghosts game. It fires. It moves. It disappears into a tree line before Ukrainian air surveillance can reacquire it. Satellite passes catch the exhaust signature, but never the vehicle itself parked and stationary long enough for a precision strike. The system has fired 17 times in the last 6 weeks. 17 times, Ukrainian cities shook. 17 times, the launcher vanished before a counterstrike could be coordinated. Tonight, that pattern ends. The team has studied the launcher's movement pattern for 22 days. Ukrainian Military Intelligence, HER, the main intelligence directorate, triangulated the firing positions, mapped the retreat corridors, and identified the single location where the launcher parks between operations, a dense pine tree line approximately 14 kilometers behind the forward edge of Russian lines. The trees are thick enough to defeat optical satellites. The position sits in a dead zone between 2 Russian battalion areas of responsibility, a seam in their defensive network where coordination between units is loose and patrol schedules overlap sloppily. That seam is the team's doorway. I'm your host at Ukraine Battlefront, where we analyze the battles that change wars. Tonight we're breaking down one of the most technically demanding special operations missions executed on the Ukrainian front. A targeting operation that required crossing deep into Russian-controlled territory on foot, pinning a mobile missile system in a narrow engagement window, and coordinating a precision strike against one of Russia's most prized tactical assets. Real tactics. Real consequences. Ukraine Battlefront. The mission begins with a problem that nearly cancels it before it starts. 3 days before the insertion, the primary infiltration route. A seasonal drainage ditch running through agricultural land between 2 Russian observation posts is flooded by overnight rains. The drainage channel that was supposed to conceal the team's movement for the first 4 kilometers of the approach has become a visible water feature. Any thermal drone sweeping the area will spot 8 humans wading through standing water in seconds. The team's commander, a 34-year-old officer with 7 years in Ukrainian special operations and combat experience from multiple phases of the war, makes the call in under 4 minutes. Abort the primary route. Shift to the alternate. A longer approach through a partially destroyed industrial zone that adds 90 minutes to the infiltration timeline. The strike window is measured in minutes. 90 additional minutes of movement means 90 fewer minutes of margin. The mission continues anyway. Which weapon matters more in this kind of operation? The targeting laser the team carries into Russian territory, or the precision missile waiting 70 kilometers away to receive those coordinates? Comment below with your answer. The answer may surprise you. The industrial zone the team now has to cross was a Ukrainian ceramic tile factory before the war. The Russians shelled it in the first months of the invasion. What remains is a sprawling field of broken concrete, collapsed roof sections, and frozen machinery that creates both concealment and noise. Every step through debris risks a sound signature that carries further at night than operators prefer. The team moves in 3-second bounds, alternating between frozen pauses to listen and short advances. 8 operators, 1,400 meters of rubble, 2 hours of movement to cross a distance that would take 12 minutes on an open road. At one point, a Russian patrol vehicle, a light Tiger utility truck with a heavy machine gun mounted on the roof, passes within 200 meters of the team's position. The operators compress into the shadow of a collapsed furnace wall and hold absolutely still for 11 minutes while the vehicle idles at what appears to be a checkpoint position, headlights sweeping the terrain. One operator's radio earpiece emits a faint click of interference from the vehicle's communications system. No one moves. No one breathes audibly. The Tiger moves on. Stay with me. What happens in the next 18 minutes of this operation determines whether a missile launcher that has been hitting Ukrainian cities for 6 weeks ever fires again. The team clears the industrial zone at 1:17 a.m. and enters the agricultural buffer zone between Russian battalion sectors. This is the seam. The terrain here is flat. Harvested grain fields covered in frost, with visibility extending several hundred meters in every direction under starlight. No cover, no concealment. Just 8 operators moving in a low crouch across open ground that makes them completely vulnerable to any aerial observation. Coordinated electronic warfare suppression for this window. Ukrainian EW assets operating from positions inside Ukrainian-controlled territory are broadcasting interference patterns designed to degrade Russian drone control frequencies in this sector. It is not a guarantee. It is a probability improvement. The team is betting their lives on a frequency window. They cross the open ground in 8 minutes. No drone intercepts. No ground contact. The tree line that contains the launcher's parking position is now 600 meters ahead. The insertion is complete. The real operation begins. The 9K720 Iskander-M is not a simple system to destroy. Unlike a parked truck or an ammunition depot, a ballistic missile launcher carries significant countermeasures. The vehicle itself, AMZKT 79308 wheeled transporter erector launcher, weighs 42 tons when fully loaded and is hardened against small arms, fire, and fragmentation. More critically, the system requires an external strike to destroy it. The team carries no weapons capable of damaging the TEL directly. Their job is not to attack the launcher. Their job is to find it, fix its exact coordinates, and hold those coordinates long enough for a strike package to be delivered from outside. The strike package tonight is a Ukrainian-developed precision cruise missile, a Neptune variant adapted for land attack missions, operating at low altitude under Russian radar coverage. The missile is already airborne. It was launched from a mobile platform 70 kilometers to the west and is currently orbiting in a holding pattern, burning fuel, waiting for coordinates. The missile has approximately 19 minutes of fuel remaining when the team enters the tree line. If the launcher's position is not confirmed and transmitted within that window, the missile diverts to an alternate target and the launcher lives to fire again. 19 minutes. 8 operators. 1 launcher hidden somewhere in a 400-meter stretch of dense pine forest. How many vehicles has the Ukrainian military confirmed destroying in operations specifically targeting Russian missile systems in the last operational phase? A, 23B, 38C, 50? The answer comes at the end of this video. Keep it in mind. The team splits into 2 4-operator elements. One element sweeps the northern half of the tree line using thermal optics. Handheld flyer devices that detect residual heat signatures of machinery even when engines are off. A missile launcher that fired within the last 12 hours will retain significant thermal mass in its engine block, hydraulic systems, and erector mechanisms. The second element moves along the southern perimeter, maintaining communication discipline with hand signals and single-click radio protocols. At 1:34 a.m., the northern element picks up a thermal anomaly. A large heat signature, roughly 12 meters in length, sitting 80 meters into the tree line at a bearing of 023 degrees from the team's entry point. The signature is consistent with a large military vehicle with recently operated engine systems. The element leader marks the bearing and transmits a single coded click sequence to the southern element. 3 clicks, pause, 2 clicks. Possible target. The southern element begins a flanking movement to get a second angle on the signature. They need visual confirmation. Thermal alone is not sufficient to transmit targeting coordinates with the precision required for a missile strike against a moving vehicle. The acceptable error margin for the Neptune's terminal guidance is 15 meters. The coordinates must be better than that. At 1:38 a.m., the Southern Element Leader reaches a position with line of sight into the thermal anomaly. Through his night vision optic, he sees it. The MZKT 7930 transporter erector launcher is parked under a camouflage net stretched between 4 pine trees. The erector arm is in the lowered position. The launcher has either recently fired or is being prepared for another firing sequence. 2 Russian soldiers are visible near the vehicle's cab, one apparently sleeping against the front wheel, one moving around the rear. A 3rd soldier is visible near what appears to be a communications antenna array positioned approximately 15 meters from the main vehicle. 3 crew members visible, at least 1, possibly 2, additional crew inside the vehicle. This is a live system, actively crewed, in a state that could represent immediate pre-launch preparation. The team's commander makes the assessment in seconds. The Iskander is being prepared to fire. The window is not 19 minutes. The window is however long it takes the crew to complete their pre-launch sequence. An Iskander pre-launch preparation can be completed in 16 minutes from a cold start. The coordinates are transmitted, but the missile is no longer in its holding pattern. Fuel state critical. The Neptune has diverted. The commander stares at the uplink confirmation on his terminal for 3 seconds. Then he opens a second channel and makes a call he was not supposed to make, directly to the strike coordination cell, bypassing the standard relay architecture. The call takes 40 seconds. The strike coordinator on the other end is initially confused. The Neptune has already been redirected. Fuel state is critical. Recovery is not possible for a second run. But the coordinator has a second asset, an older system. A Ukrainian Air Force Su-24M strike aircraft, modified to carry a laser-guided bomb, is currently conducting a patrol flight 95 kilometers to the west. The aircraft is not configured for this mission. The crew has not been briefed on this target. The weapons system aboard, AKAB-500L laser-guided bomb, requires the ground team to actively illuminate the target with a laser designator throughout the weapon's terminal approach. That means the team cannot move during the laser designation phase. They hold their position 80 meters from an Iskander launcher with an active crew and an unknown number of security personnel somewhere in the same tree line. They hold their position, paint the target with a laser, and wait for an aircraft 9 minutes away to arrive and release a 500-kilogram bomb at a target they are currently standing near. The strike coordinator confirms the Su-24 crew accepts the mission. 9 minutes. The team does not move. Subscribe to Ukraine Battlefront if you want to understand how modern warfare actually works. Because what happens in the next 9 minutes is textbook special operations, doctrine operating at the absolute edge of what trained human beings can do under pressure. At 1:43 a.m., one of the Russian crew members near the vehicle begins moving toward the northern perimeter of the camouflage net. He is conducting what appears to be a routine security check. A slow walk along the tree line with a flashlight scanning the ground. His route will bring him within 30 meters of the northern element's position. The element leader freezes his 4 operators. The Russian soldier is now 25 meters away, flashlight beam moving in slow arcs across the pine needle floor. The targeting laser cannot be activated. The laser designator emits an infrared beam that any soldier with NVGs would see immediately. The laser activation is being held pending the Su-24's arrival in the target area, 20 meters. The Russian soldier stops. He appears to be listening. His flashlight beam holds steady, pointed at the ground in front of him. 47 seconds of absolute stillness. The soldier turns back toward the vehicle. He says something to the crew member near the antenna array and moves back toward the cab. The flashlight goes off. At 1:46 a.m., the Su-24 crew reports entry into the target approach corridor. The targeting element activates the laser designator. A focused infrared beam, invisible to the naked eye but locked to the KAB-500L seeker head, paints the MZKT-7930's engine compartment. The beam must hold steady. Any movement breaks the lock. Any break in the lock after weapon release could result in the bomb missing the launcher by 30 meters or more. If you believe that tactics win wars and that the courage of individual soldiers shapes history, type Ukraine Battlefront in the comments right now. The crew near the Iskander has begun moving with more purpose. The pre-launch sequence is accelerating. The erector arm begins its hydraulic rise. The Iskander missile is being brought to vertical. The system is preparing to fire. At 1:49 a.m., the Su-24 crew announces weapon release. The KAB-500L laser-guided bomb separates from the aircraft's hardpoint at 4,200 meters altitude and begins its terminal descent. Guidance fins respond to the seeker head's lock on the ground-based laser. Time to impact from release, approximately 42 seconds. The team holds position. The Russian crew continues their pre-launch checklist. One operator can see through his night vision device that the missile erector is now at approximately 60 degrees elevation. The weapon is being raised. Whatever Ukrainian city this system was targeting tonight has no idea how close it just came to another impact. At 1:49 a.m. and 42 seconds, the KAB-500L impacts the MZKT-7930 Iskander transporter erector launcher directly on the engine compartment. The blast radius of a 500-kilogram penetrating warhead detonating against a 42-ton military vehicle in a confined tree-line position is catastrophic. The primary explosion destroys the vehicle's cab and front axle assembly instantly. Secondary explosions follow within 4 seconds as the vehicle's fuel tanks, containing approximately 800 liters of diesel, ignite. The hydraulic systems in the erector arm rupture, releasing pressurized fluid that burns instantly in the fireball. The Iskander missile itself, not yet fueled for this firing sequence, detonates partially. The solid fuel motor ignites but without proper guidance, burning chaotically in a secondary fireball that lights the entire tree line. The team is already moving. Their extraction route, planned before insertion, reviewed twice during the holding phase, memorized by every operator, takes them east along the tree line's southern edge, then into the drainage network that was their alternate infiltration route. They have 45 minutes before Russian security response saturates the area with QRF elements. 45 minutes to cover 4 kilometers on foot through terrain that Russian forces will begin searching within 12 to 15 minutes of the strike. The secondary explosions behind them continue for 6 minutes. The ammunition stored near the launcher, 2 Iskander missiles awaiting loading, according to pre-mission intelligence, adds their own detonation signatures to the chaos. The tree line is fully ablaze within 3 minutes of the initial strike. Russian communications channels in the sector, monitored by Ukrainian SIGINT assets 45 kilometers away, collapse into confusion. Intercepted transmissions from the Russian battalion on the northern side of the seam show the duty officer initially reporting the explosion as a Ukrainian artillery strike. His counterpart in the southern battalion disputes this, claiming his unit's radar showed no incoming ballistic trajectory. A third voice, higher in pitch, demands to know the status of the special object, Russian slang for high-value equipment in this context, and receives no coherent response. The launcher crew's status. 3 soldiers were visible near the vehicle at the moment of strike. The blast radius and secondary explosions leave no survivable zone within 40 meters of the vehicle's final position. Ukrainian intelligence assessment, the active crew, numbering at least 4 and possibly 6 personnel, did not survive the strike. What would NATO have done differently in planning this kind of strike against a mobile missile system? Would Alliance doctrine have relied more heavily on air assets rather than ground insertion for the targeting function? Comment your tactical analysis below. The team reaches their extraction point, a pre-designated location where a Ukrainian vehicle is waiting at 2:34 a.m. Every operator returns. No casualties. The mission lasted approximately 2 hours and 17 minutes from insertion to extraction. The aftermath assessment, compiled over the following 36 hours by Ukrainian military intelligence and confirmed through satellite imagery analysis and combat footage verification, tells the complete story of what was destroyed in that tree line. The 9K720 Iskander M transporter erector launcher is a total loss. Estimated replacement value, approximately 13 to 15 million US dollars for the TL system alone, not including the Iskander missiles it carried. The 2 additional missiles awaiting loading, Iskander-M 9M723 ballistic missiles with a reported unit cost of approximately $2 to $3 million each are confirmed destroyed in the secondary detonations. The communications and targeting equipment cluster associated with the launcher, including what appears from satellite analysis to be a 1L260 Krasnuka 4 electronic warfare system positioned nearby as standard Iskander escort, is damaged beyond operational status. Total equipment loss for Russia in this single operation. A conservative estimate puts the destroyed material value at $20 to $25 million US. For the cost of a mission conducted by 8 operators with personal weapons, a laser designator, and a satellite uplink. That asymmetry is the defining economic equation of modern warfare. Ukraine has turned it into doctrine. The Russian response to the strike reveals as much about their command culture as the operation itself reveals about Ukrainian tactical development. SIGINT intercepts from the 48-hour period following the strike show a cascading failure in Russian accountability structures. The battalion responsible for the sector where the launcher was positioned denies having security responsibility for the position. The missile unit to which the launcher was assigned claims they reported inadequate security to the district command 3 times in the preceding weeks. The district command's response, captured in intercepted administrative communications, is to demand a forensic investigation while simultaneously ordering increased patrol schedules in sectors adjacent to the destroyed position. Protecting the barn door after the horse has already been destroyed. There is no evidence in the intercepted communications of any systematic effort to identify how a Ukrainian team penetrated the seam between battalion sectors, held a position near an active missile launcher for 9 minutes under a laser-on designation, and extracted without contact. The Russian response is administrative, not tactical. They write reports. They do not fix the vulnerability. This is a pattern Ukrainian intelligence has observed and exploited repeatedly. Russian military bureaucracy punishes failure with paperwork and redistributes responsibility through administrative layers. Ukrainian special operations methodology punishes Russian bureaucracy with repeat operations against the same class of vulnerability in adjacent sectors. The Iskander launcher was not the first of its type to be destroyed through ground team targeting in this operational phase. Ukrainian sources confirm that multiple Iskander TL systems have been destroyed through combined SOF air targeting operations during the current period of high-intensity warfare. Each operation refines the team's methodology, infiltration timing, laser designation protocols, extraction route planning, communication architecture that allows a direct call to a strike coordination cell when the primary weapon asset becomes unavailable. The Su-24M crew that delivered the KAB 500L that night had never worked with this particular ground team before. Their coordination, from the moment the commander's direct call was received to weapon release, took 9 minutes. 9 minutes to integrate an unplanned aircraft, a ground team in contact position near a live missile system, and a 500-kilogram precision weapon into a coordinated strike. That 9-minute integration time is itself a tactical achievement. In Russian military doctrine, a similar ad hoc coordination would involve brigade-level authorization, take 45 minutes minimum, and require written communications up and down the chain. Ukrainian combined arms integration at the operator level has collapsed that timeline to the minimum that physics allows. Ukraine doesn't just use weapons. Ukraine invents new ways to fight. The destruction of this particular launcher matters beyond the $20 to $25 million in equipment losses. The Iskander system was the primary long-range strike asset for a Russian combined arms force operating in this sector. Its loss degrades Russian deep strike capability in the operational area for the time required to replace the TL, which, given Russian military logistics and production constraints documented by OSINT analysis, typically ranges from 3 to 6 weeks minimum. During those 3 to 6 weeks, Ukrainian rear area positions, logistics, nodes, and civilian infrastructure in the cities this launcher had been targeting operate under significantly reduced threat. That is the real metric for this operation, not the dollar value of the equipment, not the confirmed crew losses. The metric is how many Ukrainian civilians did not die in the weeks following the strike because the weapon that would have targeted them no longer existed. Will Russian forces adapt their security doctrine to prevent this type of ground team targeting operation in adjacent battalion seams? Comment yes or no. We read every response, and the pattern of answers tells us what Ukraine battlefront viewers understand about Russian military reform capacity. The tactical lessons from this operation are worth examining carefully because they represent the cutting edge of what small unit special operations can achieve in a high-intensity conventional conflict with the right intelligence support and integration architecture. Lesson 1. Mobile targets require mobile targeting solutions. The Iskander launcher's mobility made it resistant to every remote sensing strike option available to Ukraine. Satellite surveillance catches movement, not position. Air-launched standoff weapons require precise coordinates the system constantly changes. Only a ground team with eyes on the actual vehicle and a laser designator can hold a mobile target in place long enough for a weapon to arrive. This is not a new concept. It is the fundamental logic of joint terminal attack control that NATO has practiced for decades. Ukraine has now applied it against one of Russia's most sophisticated mobile missile systems in a denied access environment without NATO direct participation. Lesson 2. Seam exploitation is the special operations gift that keeps giving. Every military force creates seams, gaps in responsibility between adjacent units. Russian battalion sectors are particularly vulnerable because Russian command culture emphasizes vertical reporting over lateral coordination. The two battalions on either side of the penetrated seam had no established procedure for joint patrols in the gap between them. Ukrainian intelligence has documented this pattern systematically and built it into targeting criteria. When a high-value asset needs maximum mobility security, Russian commanders position it in a seam because the adjacent units will not coordinate to cover it. That logic inverts. The seam is where Ukrainian operators go looking. Lesson 3. Asset substitution under time pressure requires pre-authorized flexibility. The near failure of this operation, when the Neptune diverted due to fuel state, was recovered because the team commander had pre-authorization to contact the strike coordination cell directly and because the cell had standing authority to redirect available airborne assets. Without that pre-authorized flexibility, the mission fails. The launcher fires. Ukrainian cities receive another impact. The investment in that pre-authorization protocol, the training, the communications architecture, the command relationships, is as important as any physical weapon system in the operation. Lesson 4. The cost asymmetry is strategic, not just economic. 8 operators, a laser designator, a satellite uplink, and one 500-kilogram bomb eliminated a $20 to $25 million missile complex. That asymmetry is not accidental. It is the product of Ukrainian military doctrine that consciously seeks engagements where the cost-exchange ratio favors Ukraine by orders of magnitude. When this doctrine is applied consistently across hundreds of operations over a sustained campaign, it degrades Russian military capacity faster than Russia can replace it. The economic dimension of modern warfare is as decisive as the kinetic dimension. Ukraine has understood this. Russia has not adapted to it. Now, the answer to the quiz from earlier in this video. How many vehicles has the Ukrainian military confirmed destroying in operations, specifically targeting Russian missile systems in this operational phase? The answer is B. 38 confirmed vehicle kills across Iskander, S-300, S-400, and TOS-1A systems during the current campaign phase, according to Ukrainian General Staff reports and independent OSINT verification. This figure includes direct strikes, secondary detonations destroying adjacent support vehicles, and transporter vehicles destroyed during launcher repositioning. The number represents not just equipment attrition, but the systematic dismantling of Russia's ability to project long-range precision fire against Ukrainian territory. Before we close, 3 questions worth sitting with. Was the decision to hold the laser designation for 9 minutes with the entire team stationary near an active Iskander crew the right tactical call? The alternative was to break contact, lose the targeting solution, and accept that the launcher would fire again. The mission commander chose to hold. 8 operators accepted that risk. Is that the decision you would have made? Could the Russian battalion command structure have prevented this penetration through better lateral coordination with the adjacent unit? The seam existed because two commanders refused to accept responsibility for terrain neither of them owned. A single shared patrol route covering the gap between their sectors would have made the Ukrainian infiltration route significantly more dangerous. That coordination never happened. Was that a fixable command failure or a structural weakness in Russian military culture? And finally, what would you have done differently at the moment the Neptune diverted and the window appeared to close? The team commander had seconds to decide whether to extract or improvise. He improvised. It worked. It could have failed catastrophically. Is the willingness to make that call a sign of elite training and justified confidence, or operational recklessness that happened to succeed this time? The tree line is quiet now. The pine trees that survived the fire stand around a crater of scorched earth and twisted metal where a 42-ton missile launcher once sat camouflaged. The wreck has been there long enough for satellite imagery to show it cooling, from the bright thermal anomaly of the night of the strike to the gray signature of cooling steel in the days that followed. The Iskander that was going to fire at a Ukrainian city never fired. The crew that was going to complete that pre-launch sequence never completed it. 8 operators walked into Russian-controlled territory in the dark. 8 operators walked out. Real battles, real tactics, real consequences. Ukraine Battlefront. Subscribe to Ukraine Battlefront, because we break down the battles that textbooks will study for decades. And if you think there's a piece of this operation we didn't cover, a tactical decision we should analyze in a follow-up, drop it in the comments. We read every one. The fight continues, and so does our analysis of it.